To respond to the Module 8 video prompts for question number 4, letter A, what impact do you think immigration issues had in the recent presidential election? I believe that immigration issues had massive impact on the most recent presidential election. In fact, AP News reports that about 4 in 10 voters said that immigrants living in the United States illegally should be deported to the country from which they came, and that's up from about 3 in 10 from the 2020 election. I believe that shows that the images that we see coming from the southern border that are broadcast on mainstream media, those images have permeated into most American households, and those who are not very empathetic to the plight of individuals seeking refuge at our southern and northern borders are seemingly increasingly believing that they should be deported from the country that they came from. The issue with this is that nuance seems to not be a thing. A lot of people who have been deported are not from the country that they're being deported to. They have been accused of crimes. In some cases, they haven't had due process, and they are being sent to jails in other countries that they are not from or that they may be from and are seeking asylum from, due to, in some cases, individuals being discovered to have been gay and being persecuted for that. Maybe individuals had gang affiliation in a past life and have tried to reconcile that, and they are under prosecution from that gang for that. But for whatever the reason, there are individuals who have not had full due process in the United States, and they are incarcerated. They're being yanked off the streets. They're being yanked out of universities. They're being yanked out of their homes. They're being yanked out of their places of employment, and being sent to places where their lawyers, the ones that can get lawyers, their lawyers aren't even being informed where they're being sent. And I do think that increase to the 4 in 10 voters that we see currently saying that, the 4 in 10 voters that we saw during Trump's campaign that said that illegal citizens should be deported if they are not here legally. That being up from 3 in 10 in 2020, that coincides with the messaging that we see from the Republican Party and from Donald Trump himself, President Donald Trump himself, which targets individuals who are here illegally. Some agree that seeking refuge is a reason to break the laws and try to evade capture to get in this country, while others are, it's very black and white for them. They're saying that there's a law, and if you don't adhere to the law, then you should be kicked out of the country. And I do think that the current president that we have in office, he sides with the latter approach, which is that if you are here illegally, you will at some point be kicked out of the country. They do claim that they are beginning with violent individuals or individuals who pose a public safety threat, although the case of the graduate student at Columbia, the students at USC, students here at University of Alabama who have been arrested or detained due to some of their political standpoints and some of the things that they've posted on social media, that flies in the face of this administration's claim that they are only persecuting those individuals who have committed violent crimes or are a public safety threat. I do think that leading up to the election, the inability of the Democrats to communicate that immigration was a serious issue was a huge problem. I think that Democrats across the board waited far too long not to acknowledge the migrant issue and to propose their own set of solutions outside of legislation that President Joe Biden proposed during his administration, that was not pushed through. And so I think that instead of just kind of allowing the Republicans to spin the narrative how they wanted it, which has proven to be effective, judging by President Trump's election, the fallout since he's been elected in terms of his immigration chief, Tom Holman, and how reckless they've been in going into these cities and kind of going into schools and violating some age old areas of the Constitution, including trying to roll back birthright citizenship. So I think that immigration in the United States currently is a very volatile issue. I also think that as social workers, we stand in a unique position to kind of act as a neutral aid just to the humanity of the issue. I think that these are people, these are mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, and everything in between, and everything in the spectrum. And no matter what their reason for being here legally or illegally, they are currently here now. And humans have needs. They need to be fed, they need to be clothed, they need to be kept safe, they need to be sheltered, they need to be, heard. Their stories need to be heard and documented, and there needs to be some type of system put in place to help. Because whether they're just being sent back or not, that's not going to stop massive human migration from taking place as these areas become further unstable. So I think social workers in this country should kind of follow the NASW's lead. And the NASW came out when Donald Trump put forth his executive orders regarding illegal administration. And one such statement by the CEO, who is Dr. Anthony Eastreet, was social work has always been a force for resilience and transformation. And they vow to fight these orders and fight breaking families up, fight separating families, fight inhumane treatment in detention. And I think that as we process families who are seeking asylum or who are here illegally and who are increasingly afraid of confrontations with ICE, I think that we must remember that our job as social workers is to provide the resources that people need to manage their crises and help them to see the strength that they have, and they just don't know how to put that to use. I think that our job is not to be law enforcement. Our job is not to be ICE enforcement. Our job is not to try to increase the mental strain on these families and individuals. Our job is just to be a listening ear and try to address what has them in our office. If they're in our office seeking housing, our job is to do our best to try to find them safe housing where they can get off the street. If they're trying to work, our job is to try to help them find a path to work and how they can seek legal employment and get them the information. I think that our best bet right now with this administration taking the actions that they're taking is just to be vessels of information. If possible, we should be those pillars in our community where people, whether they're here legally or illegally, can come for advice, can come for information, can come to try to rectify their situations, can come to seek legal advice in immigration law. There's a multitude of things that social workers can do right now, but I think that the number one thing is do something. Do something, because what we see happening with ICE, there are individuals who are being prosecuted because they look like they're from another place. They're being prosecuted based on outdated court information. They're being prosecuted based on he say, she say from neighbors and community members who are calling ICE hotlines and reporting hotbeds of immigrants and migrants and people who are just trying to find a safe place to stay. And so I think that our number one job as social workers is to just remember why we do this and remember that we're here to help people. We're not here to increase the strain that people are feeling.